So what do you tell our music students or technology students who maybe dabble in music? How do you make a living in music going forward? How's the music industry going to look in 20 years?
Play live. You got to play live. It always was that way. Whatever it is, between the 60s and the 90s or whatever it is, when the record labels started to lose all of their mojo, that was all an illusory period from the standpoint of musicians and artists, because they thought, I got it made as long as I get signed. And of course you would get a big chunk of money, and the measure of the money was supposed to be a measure of how good you were, as opposed to a measure of the record label's estimation of how good you were. And a lot of people figured, I don't have to ever play. I just, I'll wait for the dump trucks of money to pull up to my house. And that was always an illusion. It's very appealing if you're lazy, but before there was ever a record industry, and long after there is whatever this stage that the record industry is going through, musicians will make their living playing music. They'll play it for people, and people will come to hear it. And the best music that will be made will be done in a live context. People will do their best to reproduce that good music in a recording context, but that's part of the challenge. It took me a while to come to that sort of realization. As I say, I had to evolve into enough of a performer to realize that I could always do more live with the music than I could do in the studio. For one thing, I don't have an audience like exhorting me to take any chances in the studio. I've got to do it all myself. But when you perform live, forgive me, but we all have that sort of morbid thing of the high wire act, and will they get to the other side or will they fall off? And that's why you're there. If you know they're going to get to the other side, you say, seen it, It's the possibility that something's going to go horribly wrong, or it's something really unique and unprecedented and never to be repeated again is going to happen. And the idea of recording, of capturing a recording, is completely antithetical to that. That's the fly in the amber. The fly is never going to fly again.
Well, my last question before we open it up.
Okay.
I want to get to back to the risk-taking thing. The guy who appeared on the Midnight Special, the guy who's released records that have confused and confounded some people.
The guy who had unprotected sex. Yeah.
Well, we're not going there, Todd. Yeah. But I think you're. We won't even go there. Now he's thrown me. What would you? We live in a culture where young people at a very young age are encouraged by society to kind of find what it is in their dreams they want to do and pursue it. But usually it's something pretty rigid, and usually it's tied to making money and being successful. When we were growing up, they didn't list the top 10 movies at the box office every week. The best movie at the box office was kind of a word-of-mouth thing. And now you're number one at the box office, well, it's got to be a good movie. We've shifted in our thinking. So I think there'd be a lesson to our students in terms of the choices you've made. You're the guy that said, I want to go where the others won't go, the individualist. The courage to make those choices.
It would be really great if I could say that at one point I was completely volitional about it. But it isn't rebellion per se. It's like, what do you got to lose? What do you got to lose by taking the chance half the time? It's been fortunate for me that I've had the production to underwrite my lifestyle, because that frees me when I make a record not to have to consider whether I will be required to survive off of that record. I never am. And now it's hopeless. I couldn't make a commercial record if my life depended on it. I can only make the kind of record that it occurs to me to make. And my biggest enemy is me. As I say, the thing I fear most is unconsciously writing a song that I wrote already. And then suddenly waking up and saying, oh shit, I hope nobody notices that I just rewrote one of my own songs, There is always room for something new, I think. But most people who might be the source of that new thing will give up in frustration before they get to realize it. As I say, I always had that day job to tide me through. People didn't seem to get what I wanted. It didn't much matter. At least from a career standpoint, I had another career that I was working on. So, you know, and all the musicians that I knew before I became a musician, most of them played weekends and had another job the rest of the time. Music as a career is always a long shot. It's always going to be a long shot, and the whole point of it is that worst thing that can happen is you trade your love of music along the way for the success of trying to, you know, capitalize off of the music. Only thing I want out of this is to be able to look back on what I've done and, as I say, feel like I made an attempt at the time, that I wasn't shucking, that I wasn't trying to do something because I thought I had a better idea of what somebody else wanted than what I wanted, and that I have always been willing to just let the audience be the arbiter. And if they don't respond to what I do, I'll go back to that other thing, you know, or I'll find some other thing to do. But my response to that rejection is not going to be, oh, what do you want? You know, if I can't make a living at it, I'm not going to change the way I do things in order to speculate that, you know, that I might make a living at it. Here's what I tell every act that I produce. The label wants you to come up with a single. Nobody knows what the hell a single is. A hit single was something that happened. You know, you can't say something is a hit single before it happened. They may speculate it is and may go all their best efforts to make it be a hit single. But the problem is, if you do a song just for the sake of it being a single and you don't fully believe in it and it doesn't become a hit, there you've got that piece of crap staring you in the face for the rest of your career. You know, you did something, you know, that you didn't really feel that good about, you know, because you thought someone was going to turn it into gold, and it's still a turd, you know. And that's why I never say, you know, you don't focus on the singles. You focus on just, you know, you make the best songs you can. You know, if somebody's got something that looks like it could be, you don't do anything to sabotage it, put it that way. You suddenly don't go into some sort of like Lydian mode in the middle just to, you know, be cute.
And I'm not mistaken, Bang the Drum All Day, you dreamt, correct?
What's that?
Did you dream Bang the Drum All Day? Did
I
read
dreamt
that
it, yeah. See, well, that's another thing that I can't do. I can't say that this applies to anybody else, you know, but if I get immersed in music, how do people become, you know, these ridiculously prolific writers, be so prolific, you know, with music? It's because of the complete and total immersion in it, you know, which makes them often antisocial in all other aspects, and that's another decision you have to make, I suppose, you know, is, are you so committed to music that you're willing to sacrifice other aspects of your life? And fortunately, I have an understanding family who knows that every once in a while I need to have complete and absolute solitude to cut out all the noise of everyday life so I can get some damn musical ideas to sprout up. And you know, a musical commitment isn't about the success of it, you know, and it isn't about the, it's not going to make you friends just being a musician. It may make you a lot of enemies, and at the same time, I have no regrets about it. I knew early on that I was a musician. I feel fortunate that I'm making a living at it at this particular age, and I don't plan to quit, so.
Thank you. Please, if you have questions, step to the microphones in the aisles and we'll...
Questions? Bed sores?
Anybody with questions, don't be shy. Step up to the mic if you would. Well, there's one over there, unfortunately. Okay. Actually, if you can, just because I want to get it on tape so folks can hear it at home. Maybe you grab that one. I'm sorry, Don.
Hello.
Working.
When you were talking about the video toaster project and sort of working on the project and not knowing until the end whether it was basically, or at least one aspect was going to work, and I was kind of interested in the No World Order project and the way you had come up with the idea to structure the music so that you could flip verses around in choruses and it would still make sense musically. And you were doing that on a random access system, a hard disk at that point, right?
Yeah.
But how did you get, so to make the machine execute those, the same thing that the computer could do, did you have a proof of concept moment and like the low level stuff to make that CDI machine, you know, move the head across the disk and know that that was going to work? Did you have a proof of concept kind of stage?
Well, I often depend on the technological expertise of others, you know, when it gets down to that level of detail. You know, you can only specialize so much. And for instance, when we were doing the No World Order project, which required us to get, you know, musical passages off of a disc and decompressed and lined up seamlessly and stuff like that, all of that technology, another guy did that. You know, I know my limits in that particular regard, and a lot of what I do is more about the user experience and less the bottom line technology. But, you know, talking about that sort of video and syncing things up, music is a much more plastic medium, as I said before, especially nowadays. The whole idea of moving parts of a song around, that to me seems almost an intrinsic part of the process now. That you arbitrarily label something a verse until you realize that it's the chorus, you know, and then you move it to a little later in the song or something like that. And I guess the point that I was kind of moving towards when I was talking about like SIGGRAPH and the technology then and, you know, where technology evolves. I remember it was still like 1984, 1985, and how thrilled everyone would be to see something that looked like smoke coming off a cigarette. They were just flabbergasted, you know, at the whole idea. Now you look at, you know, production like Lord of the Rings with simulated humanoids and elephants and just like everything, you know, godzillions of pixels, and I don't know what the number with a zillion zero, Googles of calculations, you know, going into these things, that the way technology has advanced, at least in this particular area, is like, it's like the discovery of electricity again. You know, it's like all of these things which we grow up with and take for granted now, but the ubiquitous communication that we have that did not exist 50 years ago. That 50 years ago, you couldn't flip open a cell phone and get so-and-so. That's the reason why I don't own a cell phone, because I don't want anybody to get a hold of me just whenever they feel like it.
Get whatever you're.
But